Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the CMA Panel from 2026. Today's date is January 30th, 2026. Today's episode is going to be discussing AI readiness with ServiceNow, and we've got 5 CMAs on the panel, including myself. So we'll go in order that they appear on my screen. But Alex, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Alex Graham. Happy to be here. I am a senior principal platform architect here on the customer excellence team in banking here at ServiceNow.
Okay, and Paul McNamara.
Hi, my name is Paul McNamara. I am an architect with Ateco, Canada's largest ServiceNow partner, formerly of PAMT Consulting. And I've been working with ServiceNow since they were named seasons, not cities.
Nice. And Jacques, this is Paul, this is your first episode as well.
It is
correct?
my first episode.
Yes,
Thank you very much for having me, Chris.
Thanks for joining us. And Jacques, this is also your first.
Also my first episode. I've been also with ServiceNow since it was named after season, so since 2008. I worked with partners, but right now I work for a customer in the banking industry as a principal architect for ServiceNow, of course.
Excellent. And Mike as well. You've been with us a couple episodes, so.
This is I've joined previous episomes, but this is the first time being a speaker. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
Mike Sabia. I feel like a young chick. I've only been on the platform since 2013. I think it was Calgary.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
But
then I'm the youngest. But keep going, yeah.
Like Alex, I'm a platform architect as part of the customer excellence group in ServiceNow. I am in the HCLS industry, though.
Nice. And again, my name is Chris Schuh. I'm known as the ServiceNow Magician and run my independent practice doing consulting for various clients in ServiceNow. And I guess I'll take the youngest title because my ServiceNow journey started in 2017. So yay for that. So
a rookie.
Yeah, right. It'll just call me green. I guess we'd like to start with discussing a bit of an overview on things like how is ServiceNow AI different from other tools or other platforms that leverage AI? So anybody would like to speak on that?
I'd speak a little to people are most familiar with generative AI from going to ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Microsoft Copilot and putting in their request, and the AI looks for a best match for the keywords it sees and makes suggestions. And that's fantastic. I think we probably all use it. But AI is more than that. You know, there's AI before generative AI, predictive intelligence, machine learning. Then you have the LLMs that I just spoke of. Now we're starting to get a little mature. We're trying to go beyond that. And that's what we're talking about today.
I think one of the big differentiators for ServiceNow is also that it can be that one-stop shop, that platform that brings in all the data from everywhere, whether it be leveraging the newer capabilities with workflow, data fabric, whether it be ServiceNow's LLM or integrating all the third-party LLMs you want. ServiceNow can be that one place that your employees or customers go that can get you access to all of the tools.
Yeah, and I think you hit on it, right? The key differentiator here is that we're about the workflow, not the model, right? It's not just about getting a prediction. It's about doing work with the AI in the context of the business, both security-wise, regulatory-wise, and in the context of the work that's already happening.
Yeah, my experience is that we usually approach it through the use cases, you know, a little less technical, more into, okay, how can it help? And the conversations we might have with people, whether you're talking to HR or legal or people doing contract management, etc., would be very different. Almost now assist as a framework or a platform, and then you enter into a conversation which is, okay, how can it help you in your daily work? I think it's more specific, more use case oriented than, you know, more generic Gen AI technologies to me.
Yeah, and that's been my experience as well, is that, you know, it's really targeted towards different fulfiller roles. Some of the early adopters that I've worked with have done, you know, an entire knowledge management catalog auto-generated. So they stood an entire knowledge management base all the way up from the ground in less than a week. It went through and combed all their old data, grouped everything, wrote it, and then it became, targeted editing and then publishing after that, which was a great journey compared to, say, as a former help desk worker, I would have killed to have had something summarize my close notes. The help desk people are going to use that. Knowledge management people are going to use it in a slightly different way, but it's all consolidated in one platform, which, simplifies your licensing, your management of the actual AI strategy, and various other things. Which takes us to the next question, which is, how do we start discussing the AI business case? So one of the journeys that our job is to carry a customer through as a CMA is the business side of things. So how do you start to broach that business case discussion around AI?
Being from the CMA program, how many of you want to say the word value right now? I mean, it all does come back to the value, and the only way to measure that you successfully deliver that value is to identify your business outcomes up front. I've seen POCs left, right, and center because everyone is rushing into AI, but drawing a direct line to exactly how you're going to realize value from it is the only way that this is going to be successful long term and grow past being a proof of concepts and actually delivering real business outcomes for your clients.
Yeah, start with a pain point you can measure, right? I had a banking customer I was speaking to the other day, and for the for their customer facing use case, an 11-second delay for the agents corresponded to needing to add 3 FTEs. And, I don't know what their cost on a fully loaded FTE is, but if 11 seconds causes that when there's a delay somewhere, what does it cost them every time they have to hand off a case from one agent to the next and they spend 2 minutes summarizing? We can take that 2 minutes that's saved in that summarization, cut it down to a minute and a half, right, to generate it automatically and read it and pass that on, and we can start adding real value there. How many FTEs does that save?
Yeah, and
And
one of the things with the close notes and resolution notes is, you make it mandatory, you tell the agents it's part of the process, but when that 2 minutes is that important and that expensive, they're going to find a way to not do it. And so your data becomes very poor, and then you can't even enable agentic. So by enabling these capabilities and making that data better, it saves the time there, it saves your fulfiller time, it creates your knowledge. It's a cascading value growth.
Mhm. One of the things that really stuck with me at the CMA kickoff last year in July in San Diego was something that Dave Wright said. His business case is not about replacing people. So if he could save 3 hours of somebody's time a week, it isn't about cutting that down across a certain amount of people and doing a headcount reduction. Instead, he's framing it of what would you have them do with that extra 3 hours? And suddenly people, oh, I could get all this done. I could have the backlog cleared. I could have all my foundation, all this other work emerges that's always pushed to the side and becomes now enabled because you have the time and the energy to do it, and they're not doing that repetitive lower value work. So that stuck with me a lot when discussing that AI business case.
I think it's
Amen.
important to reiterate that, if I may, because very often and very quickly the question is going to be about how many FTEs you can remove. And that's not a very nice conversation to have. And if you look at the recent announcements from Amazon and others, they're almost using GenAI as a pretext to offload some people. So there's a bit of there's a conversation that can become emotional about building the business case. Or I've seen that's what I've seen, and it's very important to insist on the fact that it's not necessarily about that. It's about making a user experience better or the customer experience better by enabling people to do more interesting things or things that will benefit the employees or the customers, I think. But it's not easy. I mean, my experience
But
at least says
But our
that.
world's already gone through this, right? With the Industrial Revolution, they thought we were going to put everyone out of work with robotics, and there are more jobs today than there ever were before. AI is no different. It's going to not eliminate work; it's going to change the work that we're doing, and hopefully make it better, more fulfilling, and improve life for everyone.
Are you suggesting somebody would rather go on to solving a real problem rather than typing up notes for a few minutes?
I know I would.
That's true. So just before we move on to the next topic, just want to say hello to a few people that have joined us. Thanks for commenting, Evita Brooks. You said you were looking forward to it. Patrick LaRoche is here, and also fellow CMA Nathan Weldon formerly from Mondero. I believe he's got his something else that he started recently. So we'll have to have you as a guest on one of the future episodes. But thanks for joining us today. Okay, let's also talk about how do I know as a customer if I'm ready to start my AI journey? And I know, Alex, you had something to kick off for this one.
Yeah, this is one of those topics that comes up across customers that I speak with on a daily basis. And it's kind of wild, really, because we hear everything from we're doing AI because leadership said so, but we don't know why. And so we just have to go full agentic. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, we're not doing this because we're not ready for it. And the reality for almost every customer is somewhere in between those two. AI is as good as the data that you have to support it. And so very few customers are at a maturity level right now where full agentic is their starting point. I have yet to see one where we should be starting there. But I have yet to see a customer that isn't ready for some flavor, right? We talked about the summarization and the notes generation. There's a very low bar of entry there to get to that point. And it's really a maturity journey because that, right, enables maybe resolution notes generation, which might enable the customer to do knowledge generation, which might improve the AI search results. And it's a positive feedback loop to start on that journey. But everybody is ready to start at that base step of doing something in the way of summarization. Likewise, anybody that's doing build on the platform has some readiness for the tools that we offer there, whether it's flow generation, whether it's code generation, just to make the work that they do quicker, right? Why spend your time setting up the structure of a flow when you could be in there doing the pieces that require your skill set? And so everybody's somewhere along in that journey, but there's a lot of misconceptions on either side of that.
So essentially, you're saying you feel everybody's ready to start their AI journey, but they're going to start from different places.
Precisely. And it all ties back to what we just talked about, right? What are we trying to solve for the business? Where's the pain point? And let's get the right flavor in that corresponds with the data maturity that we have and that can address one of those pain points that we can identify and measure.
Right. Now, for sure, summarization is fantastic. For those people who are looking for more, you should be careful rather than try to boil the ocean. Try to find specific use cases that can prove your benefit, prove your worth, prove the ROI, and then build from there. So yes, everybody's ready, but there's still a journey for that.
Absolutely. And I don't know, I guess I'll plug it here. We do have a readiness assessment tool that's out there available in the ServiceNow store that gives some insight into where a customer might be on that journey and individual capabilities that that customer might be ready for.
And I like that capability and I like that tool set. But when you're identifying, so let's say that gives you 50% of the information, the next piece is to evaluate the usage of the platform, because different capabilities are going to give you different value, and depending on how you're using the tool is going to impact what you should do first. So if you're doing a lot in one area or another, you might choose a different way to start, and it really again comes back to the business outcome you're trying to achieve. And I believe that tool is also platform native as of Zurich, right, Alex?
Boy, I think it's still got to be installed. There's no licensing cost to it, but I believe it has to be installed from the store still.
Okay.
Yeah, we will post the store link in the description and in a comment afterwards, but it is, store app right now, works all the way up to Zurich patch 1 for the compatibility, back to Yokohama patch 1, and it is called the Now Assist Readiness Evaluation app. It's sold by ServiceNow. The pricing, though, like you both said, is free.
Now, what the app won't tell you is who should be funding your AI efforts, right? Because that's where a lot of this gets stalled out, is everybody wants to try it. Everybody's got an idea of how it'll help, and nobody wants to fund the effort within the customer business.
So are you saying that you would like to see customer funding on the readiness evaluation as kind of like a little project that precedes a larger implementation project?
Not necessarily. I mean, the big thing is customers should be coming with pain points and with that business case in mind, and maybe not funding Now Assist everywhere, but let's pick some things where we think there's going to be a return, and fund those efforts so we can get past the argument of, we have Now Assist or we don't because so and so wants to or doesn't want to pay for it.
That's understandable. Paul, I believe you were talking about something that is available in Zurich.
Yeah, I was just playing with it earlier today in one of our Zurich instances. It's the AI readiness dashboards, and they've got a whole guided setup to walk you through it, schedule jobs that run. It evaluates ITSM, HRSD, a couple of the other apps, and it gives you some visibility into ServiceNow's interpretation of your AI readiness. It's just one more tool in the toolkit that you've got available to you as of Zurich. It'll let you install the plugin in Yokohama, but it won't do anything for you.
Understood. And those are a combination of tools that your expert programs team will want to run through with you to consolidate that information and translate that into a valid business case, showcasing value through the value management process. And then you'll be able to make a go, no go decision in specific areas and plot out that journey. So like Mike had said earlier, it is a journey for everybody. We're all at different points in our readiness journey as well. So that dictates where we can start the implementation side of things.
Maybe one aspect that I don't know whether we're going to talk more about that later. It's the change management approach. So maybe I can give 2 examples. Sometimes when I look at the incidents that, like I said, I work for a customer right now, and I look at the incidents and I look at the journal of the incident, there's not much we can use to actually summarize. There's nothing. It's like, employee called, I rebooted, fixed. I don't know exactly, what is that we can summarize here. So there's obviously a whole training exercise for people, agents, to tell them, if you start properly documenting your cases and your incidents, it's going to pay off. And we need to help those people doing that. When we get to creators, my concern, I don't know if you guys share that, is if you worked hard on factoring your code, having nice script includes and stuff like that, and now you have a tool who's going to do nothing but creating quick code snippets, is there a risk that we actually end up with tons and tons and tons of business rules and script includes with basically copy paste? And here with the developers, you also need to work on and explaining this is a tool to build a skeleton quickly. It doesn't prevent you from thinking. And when there's a case where you can factor your code, you should absolutely do that. I don't know what you think, and if that's a valid concern at least, or something you need to prep your tech teams about.
Yeah,
So,
we've
Jacques,
got a topic for technical governance on that for sure, but go ahead, Mike. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I feel what you're saying about, hey, it's going to get messy. And I agree. However, I have heard an argument to say, hey, AI wrote this really long, complicated thing. It's hard to manage, understand. And the answer was, well, just have AI look at it. It will know what's going on. So I agree.
Yep.
But
okay, yeah.
Ultimately, AI can do fantastic things, but we need people who can understand it to troubleshoot, because AI is not always going to be able to do it. And if it's not structured and it's spaghetti, or there's functions copied different places, it's going to be a mess.
So if I'm taking what both of you are saying, it sounds like what I'm gathering from you two is that you don't foresee the architect's job of making sure all these pieces work together going away anytime soon.
Well, there's 2 parts, right? It's not just the architect, because not every architect is a developer. And there is always going to be room for the senior developers that understand things like code factoring and writing code. And I know a lot of architects that couldn't code Hello World, and that's not an offense to them. Enterprise architects don't need to. My only concern is if we replace all the junior devs with AI, where do the next senior devs come from?
Yeah, that's definitely. We got a couple questions, so we'll come back to the topic list in a bit. But Monette, thanks for joining us. Glad you're enjoying the great topic. Patrick asks that he finds that selling the business case of AI isn't the hardest issue. The hardest is getting the customer to think about AI use cases and also Gen AI versus agentic AI. So we'll break that down into 2 pieces. So how do you get your customers to start defining valid AI use cases?
This reminds me of the CMDB. It was never hard to sell the CMDB, but to actually get valid use cases for the CMDB, clients would spend a fortune to implement the CMDB, and they'd get to the end of it and say, okay, now what am I getting value out of? And they didn't start from there, so they never got there. This seems very similar to me, where everyone's throwing the kitchen sink at AI without clear ways to measure the results. And really all we can do is push that, is to push outcome driven projects where, like the now methodology, right? We're going to identify what the key indicators are, and at the end we're going to measure them, and we're either going to be successful or not.
Definitely a good parallel to draw there. But yeah, what are we trying to solve? That's the first question. What are we trying to improve for the business? If we can't answer that, should we be going farther down the path?
So are you also, so let's say they come back and mention we don't really know. Are we then going through an AI capability list and kind of trying to align it to some of their pain points and tie that then to a measurable outcome? Is that?
Well, what we do here in the customer excellence group, I can't necessarily speak to everyone's role, but a lot of what we do is what I'm seeing across your peers and across your industry are use cases like X, Y, and Z. Do those resonate with you? Are these things that you struggle with? Are these things that improving this by 10, 20% would make a difference for your business?
Okay. And how do you socialize the difference between Gen AI versus agentic AI with your customers?
I mean, really,
Yeah.
I guess if anybody else has an answer, I'm happy to hear it too. But it's really a question of how many of the building blocks do you have ready to tie together? All agentic is, it's not some magical thing. It's not some switch you flip together. It's really enabling autonomous actions on the things that you've already built out. So if you can use AI to make decisions and you're confident in those decisions, the next step is agentic. Have an agent do that for you, or have multiple agents do these things in parallel. It's not an either or, right? Everyone starts with the basic now assist skills and then puts those together into agentic flows.
Okay. We've got anyone else want to do that before we move to the next question? Talk about anything else. Thanks a lot, Patrick. Okay, moving on to Nathan's question, where he asks, has ServiceNow released any guidance around when to use agentic skills versus full agents?
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, I think we'd have to dig.
Not that I've seen, but they're very different things, right? One is generating content, and one is taking action and complexity and logic, right? So generative AI has the LLM, and it has all the information, and it can consolidate you a response based on what you're asking. Agentic AI is more than just finding a response. It's supposed to have some logic and reasoning and something that it does. So it's not, it's, as much as I haven't seen a specific white paper or document out of ServiceNow recommending when to use each, it's going to be your business outcome that you're trying to achieve that's going to tell you which one's going to be able to achieve it.
Well, let's make a parallel question here. If my car is broken, do I need a mechanic or a toolbox?
Nice.
Right. The agentic is really the mechanic that knows how to use the tools. The agentic skills are really the tools in the toolbox. The mechanic without the tools is useless. So you have to have the tools first. But can the tools be used by a less skilled person, right? Can those tools be called here and there, maybe by the DIYer? Possibly. They work better together, but they're not opposed to one another. It's not an either or.
Yeah. No, and that's a great example. My dad's a retired mechanic. He had the tools and the skill set. I had neither. But then when I did do a work with him when I was 14 at his shop, I did have access to the tools, and he taught me a lot. But I never had that kind of level of experience to build a car like he could.
Did he just wonder why his wrenches kept turning into $50? Or
no, but I did make a lot of mistakes bending pipes because it was a minute muffler. So sorry about that, Dad. Okay. Nathan had said, commenting back on some of the other pieces, he'd like to retire sometime soon about having architects replace. Pedro has talked about how he totally agrees. And Isla, thanks for saying that you agree with Paul about if we replace the junior devs with AI, how does anybody become a senior dev? And that's a huge challenge that I think people are going to have to start facing in probably 2 to 3 years. Is there's going to be no entry level if people approach it this way. You're just going to have, am I just going to start building an AI entry level piece and then that gets me the job? And then I somehow watch what it does for 2 years. And now I'm not a junior dev, not a senior dev. Firms are going to have to really think beyond quarter by quarter and think 3 to 5 year plan. Who's going to work here?
Well, we've already
in 3 to
seen
5 years.
Yeah, it's happening fast, but we've already seen a slimmed down version of that when Reddit, or not Reddit, but code repositories online became so popular that a lot of developers were copy and paste coders, right? The coders of old, the senior devs, they knew their craft in and out, and it's been watered down already. AI is going to water it down infinitely more. And I can tell you, when I Google and get an answer, like a regex, when I Google and get that, I don't actually learn regex. I got it. It works. I don't actually need to understand the technology. So my level of understanding and the level of understanding of developers coming up through school using these agentic tools is never going to be what the seniors was. And if these tools suffer some way, it's going to be an interesting world.
Mm-hmm. Thank you all for the comments. I really appreciate the engagement. I'd like to get us moving to the next piece. So we've covered how ServiceNow AI is different, the business case of AI, how everyone is ready to start their AI journey, but you may be at a different place compared to someone else. The Now Assist Readiness Evaluation ServiceNow Store app, plus the Zurich dashboards that are available for AI checking. Let's now talk, how do we govern all of this? How do we govern AI in a few use cases? So the first piece I'd like to talk about is the demand governance around AI. So how do you accept a request from the beginning, from the business, to say, I would like this outcome, and you pair it with AI? So let's say that part's already done, rather than discuss that part again. How would you guide them and start it? Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Well, using some of the CMA terms again, having the governance boards, having your demand governance board to be able to ingest those asks. We often recommend that those exist for ServiceNow, the technical governance, demand, and strategic. But for AI, you need to have this bigger than just ServiceNow, because there's AI beyond ServiceNow within your company, whether that's Copilot, summarization for Teams meetings or the like. One thing that ServiceNow is positioning is that customers can start tracking all of their usage of AI within what they call the AI control tower. I think it's useful, but I am drifting a little bit from the question, which is how do you handle the demand? How do you do the governance? But I have an account which has multiple business units, and they all act independently. And when they ask these questions, I'm like, you need to talk to the higher level AI governance for your organization to make sure that you're in line with what they're doing, track what they're doing. Some aspects, if you need to have them to concur that that an external AI can reach into ServiceNow, somebody's going to have to prove that.
And really, all demand should drive back up to your corporate objectives, which your team objectives should feed up into, which should be driving what demand you take in. It shouldn't just be a free-for-all of doing everything everywhere because it was AI related. And it also opens a lot of doors that most teams are not going to think about. Like, if I'm going to use ChatGPT and I'm going to copy and paste things from our corporate environment in there, am I allowed to do that? Am I breaking some policies? Am I causing security issues? So as much as we push the governance models around ServiceNow, AI governance needs to be enterprise-wide. And if it's not, you're going to have the shadow IT of days gone by. You're going to have people going out and making their own investments, investing in their own tools, putting you into audit risk, putting you into compliance risk. Like as much as it is about business outcome and driving good things for your organization, it also opens a lot of potential bad things. So organizations that want to invest in this and are going to allow it, they need a governance that is at the enterprise level, and everything should be set to those goals.
Finish up. So like a separate AI governance model,
Yes.
team, and a whole
so.
different stream. And then, so I guess then you'll have to have some sort of governance scrum of scrums at some point, because you've got two different pieces, right?
And that brings in a topic we were talking about just a little bit before this. We jumped on the call where you've got all these different teams. I believe it was said the Microsoft fanboys are bringing in the AI from Microsoft, and you've got the Gemini team that's pushing that, and you've got the data team pushing theirs. And so if your AI governance team doesn't have representatives of the different stakeholders with the different tools that they love, you could get pushed into paths that don't make sense, or you could have an AI governance board that is not educated in the possibilities and makes decisions without all the information.
I think what Mike said really makes sense. In a way, it's no different than regular IT, if I could say so. You need to have an enterprise view. Maybe not all the Gen AI use cases are for ServiceNow. And really an enterprise architect has to jump in at some point and say, functionally, this should go into this platform versus this one is definitely something we should be doing in ServiceNow. We do the same for any need, any business capabilities, that needs a new tool or new development. Maybe not everything is for ServiceNow. I think it's even given the investment and how disruptive the technology is, it's even more important than we kind of take the demand board and the technical governance board at the enterprise level. And not every organization has a proper enterprise architecture practice, so that can be really, really challenging. So the one who's going to shout the louder basically will implement in the tool he or she loves. And that's really, really bad.
100% agreed.
Okay, we do have a question coming in. Did anyone else want to cover that before we move to the question? Anything else on AI governance? Okay.
I have something else, but maybe let's take the question first. Yeah.
No. Go ahead, Jacques. Go ahead.
So my point was, because we discussed demand and how we can properly assess whether it's something we should be doing and whether we should be doing it ServiceNow. But when we start operating Gen AI, then again, to the change management process, we need to tell people what to do. For instance, if they see hallucinations, maybe we're prepping an email that's going to go out to a customer. What if that email is completely not okay? You don't want those agents to say, oh, whatever, I'm just going to discard it, write it myself, and then you don't learn from that bad behavior. So just like we operate any tools, we also need to operate and tell people what to do if they see bad behaviors of the Gen AI engine or whatever technology we use. And I think it's important we learn from that and we go into the usual continuous improvement loop, and we tell people what to do when they see those bad things.
That's a great point. I mean, it has to learn, right? And if it's making mistakes and hallucinations, those can be reputationally, financially, they can be really damaging. So having the right processes and people in place to deal with that is incredibly important.
Yeah, and you could get into a bad habit. People get sloppy, they trust Gen AI too much, and then just click send, and well, then it's too late. The message is out, and maybe that's not the one you wanted. So yeah.
Well, we can get into the philosophical side a little bit here, right? Yeah. Gen AI is as good as the data set that it learns from. Mm-hmm. So now we have to ask, how good are the users, right? Who generated the data that it's learning from? Because AI can get sloppy because all the other user responses in your system may have been sloppy, and how much of that's a technology problem and how much of that's a people problem. And when AI learns off of AI generated content, it just gets magnified, right? It deviates farther and farther.
Which is another reason why I think we're not going to lose all of our jobs. There's going to have to be people who know what's going on or be aware of it. Somewhat tangentially from that comment, when you have AI craft a response, like, hey, here, hi, I see this issue, or here, this resolution. If people just use that as a crutch and they don't learn how it's written, how you interface with the user, then that individual isn't learning. And so I would hope that corporations are going to put effort into making sure people understand and learn those same lessons.
I'm envisioning. I remember in the early days getting that emergency help desk ticket. Can you please? They use the additional comments instead of the work notes and send something horrible to the client. Can we get it out? Can we back it out? Like I can see that ticket coming in for some AI response. Full circle. I love it.
Yeah. Nope, the email's out. No, the recall never
Recalls
works.
never work.
Yeah, it's probably already forwarded by now anyway.
Yeah.
So, okay, this one's a bit of a deviation from a technical topic, but Ben asks, how do you suggest taking on the challenge of adjusting the mindset of companies to think longer term? Historically, I've seen them trending in the other direction, and I see that as well. Sometimes people come in and want to have this make a mark thing and show these quick wins and stuff, and I got to get this stock price in 3 quarters or that type of approach. So that's really driving the strategy. I don't know how to change those hearts and minds in those cases, so I'm eager to hear what you all say.
Knowing Ben as I do, having worked together with him for quite some time, I'm going to say that our biggest roadblock, Ben, has been not getting to the right level of an organization, getting blocked at the IT manager or at a level where we're not being able to put influence onto the top levels that are making the decisions that are steering the company long term. We are more at the tactical level, and those tend to be short term, not long term goals. And I know some of the struggles that we faced, not being able to influence organizations to take that more long term approach to this. And I wish I figured out the magic sauce to that one. I'm sure somebody else has.
So if we parallel this with some of the other sort of revolutions that we've seen, even the .com era, right? Businesses that didn't adapt their strategy to what the future looks like having an online presence when everybody else was brick and mortar, they're the businesses that aren't around anymore. I don't know that there's a way that we can always force businesses to adopt the right mindset, but I am fairly confident that it's this sort of a moment when this is as revolutionary as it is that's going to probably determine who the winners are in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But because to your point, some organizations also went online, but didn't do it properly, and they disappeared because of that. They were doing, just fine, being brick and mortars business. They went online, but not with the right strategy or not with the right approach, and that killed them.
Absolutely.
So I guess the same is going to happen here.
100%.
Definitely. Thanks so much, Ben. That was a great question. Patrick also talks about how AI governance comes from the same level as corporate security, privacy, enterprise architecture, etc. So thanks again for that comment. Moving on to the next piece, though, I'd like to kind of open the floor to everybody on some lessons learned from customers on their AI implementations. So if you could go back and do it differently, what would you do? What are some high level tips to do? Obviously, evaluate your data more, strengthen the foundation. But beyond those 2 pieces of low hanging fruit, are there any other ones that we can pick from this tree?
Coming back to knowing what's going on, there are the concept ServiceNow calls it assist, where you have these queries into your LLM and they have a cost, and there can be some AI that will consume that very quickly, such as sentiment. So you need to be aware that could be a big draw upon your budget. And this is not just for ServiceNow. It could be, if you're an accounting firm and you have an agreement to be able to ask questions, if you're spamming a lot of questions, you're going to fill it up and use it up quickly.
On the brought up something there. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say on the converse side of that, a lot of the ServiceNow licensing is being sold as we'll give you X number of assists, and if you use them within the first 6 months, we'll give you another 150% of that. I've seen a lot of clients go live and not have a plan to use those assists in the time frame they had, and they miss out on this pretty significant financial advantage if they had. So make sure when you do go live, you have a plan for how you're going to consume. Definitely know what consumes and what is high consumption and what is high value for that consumption. But don't let it kind of sit idle on the shelf and not use it and miss out on the opportunities provided by this licensing model that ServiceNow is doing. That changes all the time, though. Don't take that.
That actually rings parallel with doing an integration transaction estimation.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're trying to size a contract or trying to go out and make these licensing or transaction numbers make sense and push into the contract and buy that from ServiceNow, you want to know about how many am I going to need and use over which time period. You'll want to do, just like Paul said, the same thing. How am I going to use these? What's my plan? And then always measure, because you may be over or under. So you might need to make an adjustment midway through that journey, this 3-month mark instead of the 6-month mark, to make sure you do capitalize on all of that extra value that would come out and be unlocked if you were able to get to that target threshold.
But Chris, isn't that a bit harder than with an integration, which is fairly predictable? You can tell that for every contract you will be processing, you're going to be making 10 calls to whatever API. In the case of trying to understand how many times you're going to be calling assist, for a given incident, it's hard to tell. How many times are you going to summarize, etc. So I found it extremely hard to make a prediction on the number of assists you actually need.
Your predictions should get better over time. Right?
Yeah, I guess, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's about starting somewhere. I've worked with some clients that said we need 300,000 transactions, and then it was 3 million. But yeah, like you said, that one is much easier. Just trying to draw the parallel like you do a transaction estimation. You'll need to do the same for Now Assist. The accuracy is definitely going to be different, especially if this is your first time that you won't know how many assists you'll use in that first month. But you can put in a range and guess and then kind of go from there. Alex, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, just ask ChatGPT how many you need.
Gemini said, and I'm like, oh wow, that's the wrong table. So
yeah,
it's gonna be interesting to see how the whole SaaS industry moves, because the per seat licensing may not work so well anymore because of that. Yeah,
you're going to be paying per agent instead of per fulfiller.
Yeah.
Or what about? No, I don't even want to say it. It's just going to be that's a Google. Don't be evil.
But Patrick makes a good point that the consumption of assist across all instances is making it harder. And this is the first product, really, at least the first I know of, where we're paying for it in dev, QA, prod, test, sandbox, everywhere.
That too, yeah.
And that'll feed into your governance strategy in those lower instances, because I don't care usually what happens in dev as long as you don't take the instance down. You can run this integration, and every day is your unit testing, or is your loading data, or run discovery manually every time you want. It's not going to impact the cost, but it would for testing, for demos, for UAT, right?
Your assist consumption in UAT is probably going to be higher than when you go live, depending on the volume and how effectively you're testing all the scenarios. So you've got costs before you even get to production, which is another thing that's not typical. You're typically paying just for production costs, but it's understandable because LLM compute is expensive. Why would they give it away for free? It does make sense, but it does absolutely complicate things.
Yeah, we're literally racking up GPUs in data centers as customers subscribe. But the other piece is look at Now Assist for Creator. The production use of that capability is in a dev environment, right? It's to enable developers.
True.
And so the lines for this one are a lot fuzzier than they are for most products, because name another product where the production use of that product is in, App Engine, right? We do the same thing with App Engine.
Yep.
But
no, I agree with the non-production billing completely, because of it does cost money. It is enabling certain things in a lower instance, and as long as it's everybody's aware of at the start of this where the costs are and when they start, they can bake it into the project plan and the budget. And that's what matters the most to the business, is they just don't want to be hit with that surprise bill at the end of it.
Maybe one, I don't know if he qualifies as a lesson learned, but what I've seen when discussing those subjects, especially to those who have the budget, is that they don't necessarily quite understand the difference between machine learning, Gen AI, and just plain basic automation. And you realize that we discussed that they want to go into Gen AI because everyone else does, but there are things that they could have done before just by using predictive intelligence. They might have paid for pro licenses and then never even enable predictive intelligence, and now they want to go for Gen AI. Or they could use just basic flow designers to automate part of the fulfilling of a service request, for instance. They haven't done that, and they want to go straight into Gen AI. So the culture of automation, etc., is not even there. And that's, again, it's probably not a lesson learned, but that's something that I've seen over and over.
That's an interesting point. When we were early on in this journey, so think of late 2023, I was involved in our Lighthouse program around this. So very early adopter customers, first 25 out the door kind of things. And I was sitting in a room in our Santa Clara office with a major telco call center provider. And they're bringing us all these use cases, and we're trying to build this airplane as we're flying in it, figuring out what we're going to do with Gen AI. And they keep bringing these use cases, and 60+% of them were things that were other areas of AI on the platform that we've had for years. They were predictive intelligence. They were platform analytics. The awareness there is shocking. And so customers come and say, we want to do this and let's use Gen AI. And it's like, well, we can do that. And you can actually do that with the licensing you have today, because that's not even Gen AI.
Yeah.
But I'll take that project budget to get it done.
Well, yeah, we want to help you do that.
Is it already approved? Is this money approved?
There's the small business owner right there.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, Jacques, you had something.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone want to kind of do a high-level overview of the differences between the machine learning and the Gen AI stuff? Because I know that I kind of have the high-level understanding, but under the hood, I definitely am green in that area. Alex, I know you know.
Oh, fine. Don't all speak at once, everybody. I'll yeah. So when we look at machine learning, and really AI is anything that does human-like reasoning. Could take many flavors, whether it's that self-driving car, whether it's just guessing what the result is from a math problem or whatever. Although never mind, that was a bad example. But things like machine learning are taking groups of data that you have, whether it's numerical data, whether it's text, and just predicting what the result would be based on that, right? So if I want to know what category this incident should be, I can look at the words, match them up against a corpus of other words that are used in other incidents, and say, based on other incidents that have similar words, I predict this to be the category, and I'm 85% sure of it. That's machine learning. Or normally at this time of day, we have this many of this thing, and today we have a number outside of what's normal. And there are different flavors of machine learning, but they're all just using existing data to determine, is this normal or not normal, or what would be the output of this. Gen AI is different because it takes content that exists and learns. It really just predicts patterns of net new content, and hence the generative aspect, right? So I can ask it a question, and it's going to look across everywhere else in its training data set where that question has been accompanied with this word or that word, and it's all really kind of black box. That's the slightly scary part of large language models. We can do a lot to influence them, but it's a black box. It's non-deterministic. We don't know how it's going to get to exactly what answer it gets to, and we can't recreate that answer. But it's just using patterns in the language set that it's learned from and saying this word comes after this word comes after this word, and it builds whole sentences like that. Normally they're coherent, but they're not always, because it's really truly just detecting patterns in language. It's going to make some incorrect decisions now and then. The downside to Gen AI is because it's generating something net new. It doesn't have the things like the confidence scores. It can't go back and test it like we can with machine learning or some of the other flavors of AI.
That's a great breakdown. Go ahead.
Most common place you're seeing is like the spam detectors that everyone's dealing with every day. Sometimes it identifies it as spam when it's not, right? It's just based on patterns of all of the emails that it's collected, and the machine is learning from it. And then when you're hitting that little flag, mark as spam or not as spam, you're adding to the machine learning and improving it. And I think that was the point Alex was making, is we're not improving the AI side because we're not doing that same thing where we're saying, yep, you were accurate, you're accurate. No, you were wrong, you're wrong.
But actually, we are. We still take the feedback in. If you request a code generation from Now Assist, we're actually tracking whether you use it or not and determining the quality of that prediction to influence the model. It's just non-deterministic. We can't go back and say, well, based on that feedback, we're going to do something different now, and here's what's different.
Right.
Fair enough.
Yet, I mean, there's probably going to be a code cleanup agent at some point.
Yeah.
And so, okay, well, go ahead, Paul.
No, I was just going to say, machine learning is still in the umbrella of AI, and the difference is that the generative AI is creating content, but it's doing some of that on the shoulders of machine learning. Mm-hmm. I think machine learning is just the thing that has been around and out there in systems across every industry for a very, very long time. And it's the generative thing that has spiked this massive boom, hopefully not bubble in AI.
Okay, well, I wanted to thank everybody. Let's move on to some of the closing remarks. If there are any questions, we still have some time for them, but we'll go in reverse order. So, Mike, tell us what you're working on. Anything exciting? Anything going on in your life that you wish to share? Feel free to go.
Thanks, Chris. Like I said, I've been on the platform for 13 years, but I'm fairly new to ServiceNow. I only started working here at the mothership in September, so I'm still learning the ins and outs of customer excellence. I'm really liking the position because it lets me learn a lot. You know, sometimes as a solution architect of a project, you know, you're focusing on the particular pieces, and then maybe like 3 months later you learn something else. A lot is coming at me quickly, and I'm learning it and I'm loving it. AI is just one portion of that. As far as AI, you know, we work with our customers. We're trying to you know, work with the higher people to understand their AI vision and you know, get them to use AI. Sometimes they're using AI as we recommend it. Sometimes they're doing customizations of workspaces, and there can be some edge cases on the behavior, and you know, helping iron out some of those capabilities. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that definitely is. Jacques, how about yourself?
Like I said, I joined a customer a year ago, and when I joined there, I realized that for most of the company, ServiceNow was the IT ticketing system. So I've been spending the last 10 months trying to change that opinion. We also have a Gen AI agenda. Difference is we are on a kind of managed on-prem. So it's not our own on-prem, it's an on-prem that is maintained and managed by a local telco company. And they just realized how hard and expensive it is to change their business model so they can offer Gen AI to their customers. So they had no idea, I think, and they're going through a very hard time building a business plan for them as ServiceNow provider almost, or providing on-prem instances. And it's not easy. I mean, if anyone is having an on-prem ServiceNow instance, it's a big journey to have Gen AI on-prem. I think this is where it's going to make a big change, and it might actually just, some customers that are on-prem might decide to go back to the cloud or the ServiceNow instance because it's just too hard and too expensive. You don't get those economy of scales that ServiceNow can offer for Gen AI, and it's 10 times bigger than having a normal instance, I think, in terms of cost. So this is a very interesting journey. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting and exciting. Paul, you've always got something new. So,
well, for me, I spent the last decade trying to build my own business and partner in Canada, and back in August of last year, we were acquired. I used to say that PAMC was the best partner nobody had ever heard of, and now I work for Ateco, the biggest partner you've probably never heard of. The brand was just launched in May. It's a consolidation of some great Canadian companies. But similarly to jumping onto the mothership, I am learning from the fire hose. It's a completely different beast, not being in charge, not being the go-to for everything, and trying to settle back into the things I enjoy, working in architecture, working in developing product, and getting back in with clients, doing assessments, evaluating their platform, looking at the 10 years of technical debt they've built, and giving them a path to value with this great platform. And it's keeping me busy, and I'm excited. And I think you may not know a Teco's brand today, but you will.
Yeah, definitely be sure to check them out. Anybody with LinkedIn, you've probably seen Paul in your feed at some point. Oh, looks like so that they looks like they've got some great swag. Truth be told, PAMT had the best swag of anybody. And I was worried about that, and so Kathy, my wife, was as well. What's happening to the hoodies? Whatever reaction.
Notice how Paul hasn't sent us any of those, though.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything yet.
Chris came and taught our people at one of our annual events, so he earned every bit of that hoodie.
That is true. Yeah,
And
I got to wear it once.
Ateco's done a great job of refreshing my wardrobe, so the only thing left that still says PAMT is around my neck.
Oh, that's fun. Nice. Alex.
ServiceNow may have influenced my wardrobe a little bit. I don't know. Yeah, so for me, what's different, recently I've actually been spending a little less time on regular impact account assignments because I've been diving head first and elbow deep into FSO with some of our strategic banking customers. So having a lot of fun there, trying to help them along with their journey at kind of the bleeding edge of what we're doing in financial services. So that's exciting. And of course, it lends itself to this conversation because there are a lot of opportunities for Gen AI to revolutionize some of the really, really manual processes that they have. And then, of course, we're hiring. So I'm going to make that plug because I can. Been on the hiring team helping interview people. So anybody listening or watching the recording that's interested in joining the mothership and has the architect skill set, feel free to reach out and connect.
How do you prefer them to reach out and connect?
LinkedIn is fine. And, probably do a conversation there and get a referral if it sounds like it's somebody that'd be a good fit. Okay.
No, that's a great way. So,
and not to steal from Alex, I work in the HCLS industry. If people have particular interest in the HCLS, I'm happy to field questions as well.
And if you'd like to come and work for a Canadian partner, we have a ton of open positions as well. I mean, reach out on LinkedIn.
It is a hot market again. It is. Jacques, how do you want to hire people? LinkedIn as well, yeah. So thank you all for joining me. My name again is Chris Schuh, the ServiceNow magician, hosting the CMA Panel podcast. This is our first episode of 2026. You can go back to YouTube to catch any of the prior episodes. We've had Alex, Paul, Jacques, and Mike join us today. So we really appreciate you spending time with us. And while today is a Friday, I hope that you have a great day, but an even better weekend.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you all.